And our first speaker is Casey Sonera, and she is the Laboratory Assessment Program Assistant Manager at the AASHTO Resource Center located in Frederick, Maryland. Casey received her Bachelor's of Science degree in Geology from the University of Maryland, College Park, and has been working at AASHTO for 9 years. Prior to becoming an assistant manager, Casey was an assessor for 4.5 years and has assessed over 200 laboratories. Casey was also a quality analyst who evaluated the criteria for and oversaw the accreditation status of approximately 250 city, state, and commercial testing laboratories. So she's going to talk about the accreditation program.
Right, thank you for having me and thank you for that introduction. As Anita said, my name is Casey Sonera and I'm here today to talk to you about the AASHTO Accreditation program. I'm going to talk in general about accreditation and why it's important especially to this new industry. It's new to us, I guess. And then I'm going to talk about, kind of get into the details, into the weeds of how to actually accomplish becoming AASHTO accredited. So I was going to ask this question, but after talking to a lot of people here this week, I'm going to take an audience poll. How many people here work for an organization that is currently accredited? If you work for a state DOT, you should probably have your hand raised. How many people of you are involved with that accreditation process? Okay, so just a handful of you. So that's a pretty good baseline. Let's talk about the definition of accreditation. ISO defines accreditation as a third-party attestation related to a conformity assessment body conveying formal demonstration of its competence to carry out specific conformity assessment tasks. It's a pretty straightforward definition, right? Well, I don't think it is. I think it's kind of a mouthful. So let's work on rephrasing that a little bit. A third-party attestation, so it's a third party. It's someone who doesn't have financial gain in the outcome of the audit or the process. So AASHTO Resource and AASHTO in general is a third party. Let's kind of look at the second part of that sentence. Well, I'm not going to reread it, but basically what it says is, are you meeting the requirements that we have set forth? So if we kind of bring everything together, it might read an external organization that acknowledges that you're meeting certain requirements set forth by certain criteria. Can we all agree that that's a slightly more usable definition than this one? Not to ding ISO at all. So who uses accreditation? Well, when I first looked up the definition, just about everything that I Googled had something to do with education. So it's probably the most widely associated field is the education field. Businesses of all kinds use ISO. ISO is another accreditation organization. My mechanic is ISO 9001 accredited, and they were getting ready for their audit when I was getting my oil changed. They were very upset about it. Labs of all kinds use accreditation, not just construction materials testing laboratories, food laboratories, pharmaceutical labs, bioengineering labs. But we're all here today because we're in the construction materials engineering field. You'll notice that there's another bullet point up here. There's another side of the coin. People that seek accreditation, but also the people that specify it, and those are specifying agencies. And there are some people in this room that are both users and specifiers. Again, a lot of the departments of transportation, the central labs, are both users and specifiers. So when we survey our clients, they responded back with this list of specifying agencies. They've identified these organizations. I'll play it again, in case you didn't catch them all. They identified this list of organizations as people specifying accreditation in order to do work. It's a lot of specifying agencies. So what does that mean? It means that accreditation is really well established in the construction materials testing world already. And we're really getting our foot in the door with pavement preservation methods. Now I'm talking specifically about lab mix designs here. Anyone want to see the list again? There's a lot on there. Does anyone see themselves on here? I know there's at least 2 of you. Of all those lists, or of all those organizations on that list, why do they think accreditation is so important? This is going to be a little bit like a Jim Gaffigan sketch where I'm just going to ask myself questions and answer them. So there's 3 main reasons that I've identified. So the first reason is for third-party objective evidence. Like I talked about before, it's really important to have a third-party person looking at the accreditation requirements because it really removes any doubt about the authenticity of what's going on the job site, or in the lab, rather. In addition, a third party can really look at your paperwork and say, well, you know, I'm not sure that this makes sense. It's a really good outsider perspective. The second bullet point, another reason why accreditation is very important, is because it promotes industry-wide improvements, and that's through consensus-built best practice sharing. I know we are new to the pavement preservation scope of testing, AASHTO resources, but we've had a lot of experience with other types of construction materials. We really help improve and give credit to all types of construction and materials testing. The third reason is a recognition of quality and competency. It means that your lab has proven themselves to be competent. Now, anyone that wants to make money can buy equipment and go out on the road and pave. It's not necessarily going to be a good job. I can buy a stethoscope and a lab coat and call myself a doctor, but until I treat someone and they end up really injured, no one's going to really question whether or not I'm competent. So if you remember back in the definition slide, I highlighted that word competency. That's going to be so important, and measuring competency is a really crucial factor in measuring whether or not you're accreditation eligible. Thinking about your organizations, how do you evaluate competency of any level in your organization, be it technicians or the people you work with? Does anyone here use quizzes or tests? Okay. What about external certification programs, like your state provided one, NICET, ACI? Okay. Customer feedback. Does anyone here not evaluate competency in any way? You should probably keep your hands down if that's the case. Okay, great. So it seems like there's a really good mix of different ways to evaluate competency. And there's not really a wrong way to do it, as long as the way that you've chosen is documented and effective. So, how does AASHTO resource evaluate competence? Well, we do it in 3 different ways. We have 3 programs that evaluate the competence of your lab to really give us a robust idea of how well you are conforming to the requirements set forth by the methods. We use on-site assessments to evaluate the skill at running a test method according to the standard. We use proficiency testing to determine how close your technicians can get to consensus-built data. And we use the AASHTO Accreditation program to determine effective implementation of your quality management system. So all of this gives a really robust evaluation of conformance and competency. And I'm going to get into each of these programs a little bit later. Don't worry. All right, so what do these 3 programs give you? Well, they build confidence. Conforming gives you confidence. If you go to a job site, and this is speaking from someone whose experience on an actual job site was yesterday at the paving demo. If you go to a job site and someone says, hey, that emulsion looks weird. Is it supposed to be pink? And you go, well, you know what? Of course it is. This is going to be the best road you've ever seen. And you can say that regardless of whether or not you actually know that to be true. But with accreditation, you know that emulsion has been tested. And maybe it's pink, but that's okay. You know that the aggregate that is being shipped to you that you're using has been tested in an accredited lab. You know that the technician that performed the testing on the mix design has been evaluated for competence. You know that the equipment that was used to do the testing has been calibrated and is meeting specifications. You know that all of those things have been documented because they have to be, And you know that. So you can say, when that person says, hey, is that going to come out right? You can say with confidence, yeah, and here's why, and hand them a big notebook of papers. Now, you probably won't carry them with you, but you'll have that confidence to do that. Not only will you have the confidence to say that, but the person who just asked you that question will have the confidence to say, oh, okay, well, yeah, they're an accredited lab. They did that mixed design right. I was just curious. So that's why, another point. In addition to that, after you've built the road, the driver, who has this excellent driving experience, goes, oh man, bless you. What am I driving on? I didn't even notice they were repaving this road because it was like a week-long operation or something. This is great. Well, suddenly you also have the confidence of the public. And when the public has confidence in you, they talk to their local municipalities and say, well, I want more roads like this. And now pavement preservation has gotten a leg up in the industry. So the confidence makes you more competitive. All right, that's my spiel about accreditation and why it's so important and why I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm going to talk about now kind of a roadmap to accreditation and talk about our program specifically. All right, this is the most simplified roadmap that you'll ever see. And it doesn't actually, you don't have to follow this roadmap, but it's a general idea of how people seek accreditation with us. So the first step is to develop a quality management system. If anyone in here does not know what a quality management system is, I would highly recommend that you go sit in my colleague Tracy Barnhart's presentation this afternoon. She's going to give you a real leg up, and she's got some good points in there. Once you develop a quality management system, you need to implement the quality policies and testing practices. So that means, if you haven't bought a new set of ASTM standards since 1986, you should probably go re-up those. You're going to want to start documenting and training people too. After you're established, you're going to start participating in our programs. So that means calling us, requesting an on-site assessment, and participating in proficiency samples. Again, this is it's a customizable start to accreditation, so you could really kind of do this out of order in terms of participation, but this is what most people do, and it seems to be the most successful way to do it. After you've participated, you're going to resolve issues and prove conformance. I kind of wish that I had said continuously prove conformance and continually demonstrate conformance, because it's not just about doing something once. The accreditation is a very fluid, living accreditation. It's not a one and done type of thing. So after you've had your assessments and you're participating in our proficiency samples, you're going to have to continuously prove and continuously demonstrate that you're meeting the requirements of the accreditation. Back in my first or second or third slide, I talked about third-party objective evidence, assessments. This is one of the ways we collect the third-party objective evidence. All right. Has anyone here been through an assessment? They're awesome, aren't they? Yeah, great. I like Joe's very aggressive nod. Thank you for that. So every 2 years, we're going to pay you a visit. It's approximately every 2 years, which means we're going to come to your lab, and we perform the assessment based on the tests that you choose. This is a map of some of the labs that we visit. I couldn't fit them all on here, but if you actually were close enough, you could see that within the between Los Angeles and San Diego, we have 100 labs. In Phoenix, we've got 44. And this was information that I pulled last year. So again, this construction materials testing accreditation is not new to the industry. It's very well established. So what we'll do is we'll schedule an assessment about 6 weeks ahead of time, and you typically know when we're going to be in the area. Prior to actually coming out, we're going to send you assessment preparation lists. We're going to send you an assessment agenda so that there's really no question about what we expect of you and what you can expect from us. We want you to be as prepared as possible and really there not to be any surprises. Once we're there, we'll do a quick opening meeting. Again, introduce ourselves, go over a brief agenda, and then we will start to evaluate each test method. So we're a very technical organization. For those of you who've been through other audits before, they might not exactly know what you do, at least in the technical sense, but we are very technically oriented. So what we'll do is watch you perform each test that you request. In this picture, you can see Russell on the left, evaluating Ryan on the right to do a backscatter using the nuke density gauge. This is in our parking lot. So you can see we live in a tropical paradise. If you notice, Russell on the left is using a tablet. All of our assessors are equipped with tablet PCs. And on those PCs, they include worksheets. Now, each worksheet is equipped with a single line item for every requirement of the test method. So we're really going to do a great job, a very thorough job of evaluating the demonstration, of evaluating your equipment. One of the other things that we really pride ourselves in is the ability to help you improve. So here, Russell, he's got all the requirements, and he might say to Ryan, who's actually running the test, you know, Ryan, I see you're doing everything pretty much correctly, but I see you're lowering the source rod with your right hand instead of your left hand. It says that you have to run it with your left hand, which is that's not a real thing. But here's why. You know, this is the importance of that. And he's going to leave Ryan on the left understanding how to run it. It's not just marking things up, giving a report, and walking away. There's a discussion. And as we learn more and grow more within the pavement preservation industry, we'll be able to give that kind of feedback and really help improve. After we've done with the testing, we go and measure your equipment. Any relevant testing equipment we will evaluate based on the standard. And then we'll also do a quality system audit. Again, if you don't know what that is, go see Tracy's presentation. She's really going to get you a good head start. We evaluate the paperwork associated and the records associated with the quality management policies. After that, we generate a report with any findings. Hopefully it's a short report. Sometimes they're long. It really depends. We generate a report and we go through that report with you at the end of the day. During that report, we'll go over all the findings and explain to you the corrective action process. We'll explain to you how to do a root cause analysis, because that's a really important part of accreditation, is understanding how to resolve things and then resolving them completely, not just putting Band-Aids on them. Since this is a pavement preservation conference, these are the pavement preservation tests we are currently offering, in addition to tests associated like aggregate tests, emulsion tests. We are already offering those. All right, moving on to the proficiency testing program. Some people call it round robin testing. We call it PSP. Some people call it PT. It's all the same thing. We offer actually the largest proficiency testing program of its kind. Every year we ship over 22,000 samples to 38 countries, and each sample is handmade. When we ship you a sample, you'll have a window in which to run the tests associated and to enter your data on our website. It's actually one of the most simple things that we have set up, so kudos to us. Once we get the data, we can use it for comparison testing, and the data is based on consensus data from all those participating. In some cases, with really established test methods and with a large group of participants, we are able to establish precision and bias statements, and you can see those in the backs of some of your test methods. We hope to be able to do that with this one day. Maybe not anytime in the next couple of years, but hopefully soon. We're really working to improve this our sampling. Now, as you may have mentioned or may have noticed, we are AASHTO resource and no longer AMRL, so just ignore that AMRL on the box. But this is the actual sample that we shipped in July. This is the first round of slurry and microsurfacing proficiency samples that we shipped. And you can see that on the left you got a bag of aggregate and then distilled water in the middle, an emulsion sample, Portland cement, and a data sheet. And it's enough to make 2 samples and run all the tests on it. We shipped this sample in July. It closed, the sample round closed in August. And we really learned a lot about design, preparation, sample handling, and data analysis. Now, I should mention at this time, for accreditation purposes, your scores after you run the test will not be evaluated for accreditation. We're only requiring participation. So that's going to change in the future, but if you're worried about not getting good scores at this time, don't worry, all we require is participation. If you're interested in participating in the next round of proficiency samples, sign up on our website by next summer, by July or so, and we can ship you a sample. Let's talk about the AASHTO Accreditation program. This is the third way that we evaluate competence. AASHTO Accreditation program accredits for over 650 tests. We have 13 scopes or different materials that we accredit for, and we have approximately 1,900 accredited labs at the moment. Of those 1,900 accredited labs, I believe 6 of them are currently accredited for pavement preservation test methods, which is up from last year when it was 0 at this time. Those 13 scopes, 1 of them is pavement preservation test methods, and of those 650 tests, about 11 of them are pavement preservation tests, specifically defined within our pavement preservation scope. So I'm not talking about aggregate and emulsion tests, because we have a lot more of those. So what happens with the AASHTO Accreditation program? The results from the proficiency testing and the results of the on-site assessment feed into the AASHTO Accreditation program, and the results of those are evaluated, and your eligibility for accreditation is determined. Now, we don't just say, well, they did this and they did this, they fail or they pass. The people who work for the AASHTO Accreditation program, they're called quality analysts. They're essentially case managers, for lack of a better term. They really evaluate the corrective actions and the root cause analyses that you put towards resolving any issues that may have come up. So maybe you didn't get your balance calibrated in time. Well, they're going to collect a record from you and see what kind of corrective action you put in place to make sure that that won't happen again in the future. Now, if you just say, well, it might happen again in the future, they probably won't be too happy with that kind of response. One of the things we really work towards in all of our programs is to have you understand accreditation, understand the issues, and resolve those issues. Again, we have a lot of experience in the science behind things and running tests. We can help you as best we can. Obviously, we're not all engineers. We don't have the same experience as you, but we really do know accreditation. We know what the requirements are, and we can help you resolve and understand those. The labs that have the most success in our program are really the ones that embrace accreditation. They're the ones that nurture it, give it what it needs, give it the time and attention that it needs. It's in our best interest for you to do well. So if we can take the time to explain to you the importance of good documentation, the importance of running test methods according to the standard, and you understand that, it really makes us look a lot better. So I said we're a third party. We don't have anything financially to gain, but good representation and having really high quality labs with our seal of approval, the app accreditation seal of approval, it really goes a long way because it means that we have a very good base and a very good representation. All right. Here's this diagram again. These 3 programs, they're not easy. They're tough. They're thorough. They can be done if you put a lot of effort into quality testing and quality system documentation. It's a good thing. But the toughness has value. The toughness and the value means that you've actually earned the right to be confident in your work, and others have earned the right to be confident in you as well. And like I said before, the driving public has confidence in pavement preservation. They're going to start asking for it. The more they see it, the higher quality roads they're getting, the less money that they have to spend on them. It all builds confidence, and it all contributes to growth in the pavement preservation industry, which is really why we're here, isn't it? If you're not here for that reason, then you snuck in somehow, but you're getting some great presentations. All right, let's talk about some of the resources that we have. In 1965, AMRL got started. In August 22nd, 2016, we changed our name from AMRL to AASHTO Resource. One of the reasons is because we've changed a lot in the last 50 years. But we're also more of a resource now than we have ever been before. In 1988, the DOTs decided that they wanted a formal recognition of quality and competency. And so the AASHTO Accreditation program was started in 1988. Probably should have mentioned that before. But prior to that, they were just having assessments and proficiency testing. Once we established the AASHTO Accreditation program, we figured we could be much more useful to everyone to improve the industry, to improve highways, to improve roads and construction. We have an extensive library of technical, quality, and testing-related newsletter articles. We also have free quality management webinar training that's being updated right now to reflect the changes that were made in 2016, and it'll be available on our website later this year. The current one is available if you want to get started. We also have really technically knowledgeable and available staff, and I put our staff as a resource because they really are. The collective knowledge of the staff that we employ is just out of this world. In my introduction, Anita said that I have assessed over 200 labs. Well, that means I've seen 200 quality management systems. I've seen what works and what doesn't. I've seen filing systems that are just the best things in the world, and I've seen ones that don't work. And I can go to that lab that doesn't have a very good filing system and say, hey, I've seen this other organizational system at this other lab. It works really well. It makes a lot less work at the end of the day because you don't have a big pile of papers that you have to go file. In addition to all the knowledge we have to share, we're actually available. If you give us a call, we can direct you to someone who can typically answer your question. And with having access to a lot of the DOTs, we can call them if we don't know the answer. James knows what I'm talking about because his phone is probably ringing off the hook. In addition to these resources, we also have a specifier functionality. If you are one of the groups of people that oversees other labs and you need to monitor their accreditation status, we can hook you up with a system that just sends you a daily email with what's going on with those labs. It's really useful so you don't have to actually go in and check the accreditation status every day, especially if you have 100 labs that you're overseeing. And probably one of the most valuable things to you would be our accreditation directory. Once you become accredited, your lab will show up in this directory. So anyone looking for someone who's accredited to do pavement preservation tests can just specify a test, specify a location, and suddenly there you are. They know exactly who to call. And you're going to be probably the only lab in your area, at least for now, that is going to show up on that listing. All right. That's pretty much it for my presentation. If you have any questions, please come to talk to me about how AASHTO can be a resource for you. If these presentations get sent in electronic format, I've actually included some of the useful newsletter articles in an additional slide. Are there any questions? So the question was, how long does it take, how much lead time is required to get accredited, basically. And that's really dependent on each facility. So far, a lot of the labs that we have accredited are already well established in our program. They're doing testing on emulsions, asphalt binder, aggregate. So they've already got a quality system in place. They already know how our system works. And they already know the corrective action process and resolution process. Other labs that are starting from scratch, it might take a little bit longer. If you need to develop a quality system from scratch, depending on how well you want to do and how large your lab is and how large your scope is, it might take you a week, it might take you a year to develop an effective quality management system. In terms of actually scheduling an assessment, if you go on our regular tour, which is we circle around the country kind of from east to west, I can tell you when we're going to be in your area within about a month or two, but it'll probably be about 3 or 4 months lead time that we would need to get a request in to have that assessment. Now after that, we submit that report I was talking about during the on-site assessment. Any deviations from the test method that were listed, we call those nonconformities, you have 90 days to resolve those. So you can resolve them. If you can resolve them in a week, that's great, that's awesome. But some of them, they might take a little bit longer. Sometimes the root cause analysis might take 2 or 3 months. Sometimes it might take that long for a piece of equipment to come in. So I would say give it a year. That's probably about average. If you're already a well-established construction materials testing laboratory, you've already got accreditation, give us a call. We can probably get down there and you can have accreditation within maybe 6 months. It's very dependent on kind of the situation. But I would say not next month. Don't say we're requiring this by the end of the year. And we also have a limited number of staff. We can't, if every state started requiring something, and we had to go to visit 100 labs. Well, it would take us a while to do that. Great question. Anyone else? Great. Thank you so much for having me.